I didn't spend a bunch of time watching this today, but I did see today. Did y'all see that Howard Schultz of Starbucks fame got drug in front of Congress and got yelled at by Daddy Bernie for being a billionaire union buster?
No, say more.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know that like it's kind of like all around the country, individual Starbucks are starting to unionize, and predictably, Starbucks management and the CEO class of Starbucks employee is not pumped about it. So
Right.
they are doing all kinds of things right now. Some things, some of their activities are in a nice way to say it is that they're in a legally gray area. And so Howard Schultz had to come to Congress and get grilled about he had to take questions about union busting and his practices with his employees and everything. And honestly, like, okay, so like straight up, I don't under no circumstances. There is not. I'm trying to think, because I do think of myself as an empathetic person, but I'm trying to think of a circumstance under which I would like feel bad for a billionaire. There's not a lot, but I will say.
I mean, general bodily harm is like in the category of like, I have empathy for like the human experience, but the day-to-day comings and goings, nah.
Yeah.
I've noticed with myself when I'm watching TV shows, because I don't interact with billionaires in my day-to-day life. So when I see them on TV shows, I've noticed that I am the most empathetic when I'm like, oh, he has a shitty dad. I have a shitty dad. I know what that's like. But then I'm like, okay, but like also I was trapped with my dad. I didn't have like money to like leave. So like, also fuck off. You have enough money to like deal with it. So it only extends so far. But yeah.
It is crazy. Like just the concept of being a billionaire. Like I can't, like it breaks my brain to even think about it. Like you could like that. I think that's what, I don't know. And now I'm going off on a weird tangent that I wasn't planning on going off on, but I think that's one of the things that that bothers me the most about guys like Elon Musk, where it's like, dude, you literally, I mean, for one, you could just like solve like the problem of hungry children, like tomorrow. Every day that guy wakes up and that's on the table for him and he just doesn't do it.
He could solve almost any problem, like maybe not all the problems, but any problem he wanted to solve that money is involved in solving, he could solve.
But like
probably like 4 times over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely more than one. But I'm just saying at minimum, he could just pick one thing and be like, this is the issue I solved today.
But even selfishly, like he literally can wake up every morning and do whatever he wants, whatever he can think of. He has the money. He doesn't have to do anything. He literally could do anything that he wants to do. And what he does is he goes on Twitter and gets in fights with people and posts like stupid memes. And that, I think, to me, is one of the most irritating parts because it's like, dude, like, what are you doing with this? Like, I mean, like for one, give like 99.9999999% of your wealth away to like people who can actually put it to good use and use the rest of it to just dream big, man. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you this. If I suddenly came into like $250 billion, y'all would not see me on social media. That is the Skylar Henry
for
promise.
You goes away. Like,
you know what? Guillotine, dude, honestly, I don't think you can have $250 billion and a Twitter handle of guillotine for you. You got to retire it at that point. Once you have that many dollars, you can't, you got
the guillotine's coming for you.
I would have to step away from the guillotine stuff, I think, at that point.
Yeah. I also don't think you would have $250 billion for very long. Like, I feel like before, like, I think it would be in your account just long enough for you, or your accounts, just long enough for you to be able to have like whatever that source of income was to clear, and then it would be going immediately back out. So it would be like, you would be the shortest lived billionaire ever to exist on planet Earth. It's like Skylar Henry was a billionaire for 7.5 minutes. And that was the time it took for all of the checks and other transfers he was planning to make to clear.
Right. He paid off all of his credit card debt, and then he had to go back to work.
Yes.
But you got to keep your social media accounts. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Then you get
I
to keep
stayed
the
real.
meeting.
Yes,
I stayed real to that. Yeah.
So did
All
anything
right.
else interesting happen during this hearing?
Well, I mean, he's just kind of like he's getting asked pretty pointed questions. I honestly, I didn't watch a ton of it super closely, so I don't know like any details. But it's if you go, on social media or look it up, like Bernard is asking him some pretty direct questions about did you commit a crime, and he's like, I
Define crime.
may have done some things that may have been interpreted in a way that I didn't intend, and like doing that kind of stuff. That's where it comes in, like, because I'm like, I think the part, like, do you have anything, like, is there anything in any of your experiences that like somebody like Congress could drag you in and sit you down and be like, all right, I'm going to ask you some hard questions? Because for me, like, what is Bernie Sanders going to grill me? He's going to be like, you said on January 1st that you would go to the gym 3 times every week. And now we're almost done with March. And
you're just paying the gym.
yeah, exactly.
Andy, you paid for a gym membership for 2 years and you've been once.
Yeah.
I go 5 times a week, so I'd be able to answer that question honestly. But I wonder, but that's also because I am a border collie, and if you don't run me and run off the energy, I will just tear up your stuff. So you gotta burn off the energy, otherwise I'm no good to anybody. But I'm also wondering, like, I find it really hard, like, when asked a yes or no question, it's hard for me not to just give you a yes or no. I mean, I may want to give you some explanation, but it's very rare that when someone says, do you support this? Did you do, especially when it's did you do, right? Like, do you support could be a little bit more complicated, right? But did you do this thing? I either did it or I didn't do it. Like, I can explain the context around me doing it or me not doing it, but ultimately the answer should begin with, yes, I did this because, or no, I didn't do this thing because. But when people start getting into the, I don't remember, and just like,
well, that's
like,
because Flo, that's
yes,
because
you did it.
But you never are being asked like things. You're never being asked to incriminate yourself because you don't do criminal stuff, right? So like, it's like the only way that comes up is if somebody's like, did you do this thing? And the answer is yes, but you don't want to say yes. So, but you can't say no. So you got to say something.
But
that's where all the weirdness comes out.
Didn't we learn as children to not do things that we wouldn't like? Maybe it was just my parents. Like, maybe you all can explain, but like, there was a whole conversation in my family of like, don't do anything that you would be mortified to have, show up on the front page of the newspaper, or like people to find out. Like, what's done in the dark comes to the light was something that my family constantly drilled into me. And so it was like, don't do things, right? Like, you're entitled to privacy, and I'm not saying anything about that, but like, don't do things where if the rubber hit the road and you had to explain your actions, you would feel ashamed to do them. That's like a core belief of mine, that like, if I'm about to do something and I'm like, I don't want anybody to ever find out I did this thing, like, I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Well, yeah, you've really that is an interesting take on people who choose to do unethical things for personal gain.
Right. I think once you get a couple $1 billion, though, you like throw that right out the window, right? Like, it's just so much easier to just ignore it.
Or that's how you get a couple $1 billion, because you really do stuff. Right? Because they say behind every, is it millionaire or billionaire now? Behind everyone, there's a great crime.
Oh yeah, I mean, nobody. Here's what I will say is that nobody earns $1 billion. That is not a real thing. You take $1 billion.
Yeah, take it away from other people.
You take it away from other people who made it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if that great crime is legal, it's still a crime, right? Like ethically, it's still a crime. Like you didn't pay people what they should have been paid, a livable wage, right? You were using like child labor or something like that to get your profits. But like there's something in there that doesn't pass the sniff test.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Speaking of the sniff test. Is that a good segue?
That is a terrible well, where are you going?
I don't know where it's going.
Finish the sentence,
yeah.
Skylar.
I'm just gonna cut straight to the song at this point.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Flo.
And Andy.
And Sarah.
That's right. Today we don't have Skylar. Well, we had Skylar for the intro, but we don't have him anymore. And we also don't have Dave. Dave is supposed to be seeing a play, but then I don't know if he went. So we don't actually know where Dave is tonight. And then Shannon is prepping to head out of town. We are sending Shannon some extra love. I think folks know she's been, just having to deal with a lot of family things. And so I know how that is. I think you all remember I was going through family stuff a couple of years ago. So we're really sending Shannon some love. We understand what it's like to have aging relatives and all the ebbs and flows of life. So Shannon, from our hearts to yours, we are sending you mucho love. Dave, no clue where you are. And Skylar, thanks for the intro. So before we get started, you are listening to Voices River City podcast. And if you like what we do and you want to support us, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Voices River City. You can do it for as little as $5 or as much as $25 a month. You can support us. That allows us to be able to provide you some independent hot takes on all the things happening around Sacramento. And so we are really excited to be able to do that and hope you will join us as a patron. With that said, we're going to hop right into it with our two wonderful guests, Andy and Sarah. So I'm going to start with you, Andy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. My name's Andy. I use he, him pronouns.
There we go.
For job stuff, I'm the program manager at Social Justice Politicorps. I've been with SJPC since 2020 and been full-time staff since 2021. Outside of work, I watch a lot of TV, fanboy super hard about stuff, and I like to draw and craft. Those are the most interesting things about me.
I don't think that's true, but thank you for sharing those.
Sure.
And Sarah, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for Social Justice Politicorps. I am the second full-time employee. I got hired right as I graduated from Sac State last year during the summer. I did an internship with them first. And I'm kind of the bridge, the connection between the organization and the community, as I kind of like to see it. Aside from work, I love animals. I'm really passionate about animal welfare. I love SZA. She's my life right now. And I love reading and I love TV shows. Yeah, a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So we want to jump into talking a little bit about Social Justice Politicorps. So can one of you tell me, what is SJPC? What are you all about? How does this work?
Yeah, so SJPC was founded by Kula Koenig in 2020 with the goal of crowdsourcing political information in the city and county of Sacramento in order to make things happening within local government accessible for people, easy to understand, easy to engage with. So our main goal is to provide political education, access to easily understood information about things happening within Sac City Council, Sac County Board, school districts when we can, other things that might be happening within government realm within the county. And then, so one arm of it is political education Another arm of it is trying to empower people to get involved in advocacy if they want to. So hopefully trying to connect people with our partner organizations, directing people to places that they can make their voice heard. You can, if you're interested in being part of the like crowdsourcing that SJPC does, you can be like featured on our social media. We can do write-ups about a cause that you care about or an organization that you care about. We do like individual and organization spotlights. So just really trying to provide education and awareness around social justice issues. And then the other big part of what we're doing is the community outreach part. So maybe Sarah can talk about that stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you. So just like I was kind of mentioning earlier, I am the community outreach coordinator. So I'm kind of the person that's always out and about. I do canvassing sometimes with Flow. I mostly do events, and I also table at local community businesses like Drip Espresso. And I just go out and I try to engage with as many community members as I can, let them know what we're doing. I love to coalition build too. So that's another big part of my job, is just making as many connections as I can and just being out and about and trying to make connections and really hear from the community what's needed, what SJPC can provide. It's kind of my part of the whole thing.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask each of you a little follow-up question. So Andy, you mentioned that people can share with SJPC maybe meetings that they've attended and write-ups. Can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like? How would I know how to do that?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple ways you can do it. If you go to our website, there's a page.
What's the website?
It's socialjusticesac.org. The tab, I'm going to double check that I have it right. There's a Get Involved tab. And then if you go to Help Us Monitor Government Meetings, you can click on that. From that page, there's a couple of things you can do. If you know of an agenda item coming up at a agenda for Sac City Council or Sac County Board of Supervisors, there's a form where you can flag an agenda and tell us like what it's about, why we should pay attention to it, basically. And then my job as the program manager is to make sure everything gets covered and published in our newsletter and then like posted on our socials. So anything you do in that realm, I will be in charge of handling. So you can flag agenda items. You can sign up for meetings too. We have a calendar linked. So if you click on this like county board meeting, there's a little form you can fill out that says, hey, I'm going to this meeting and I'm going to watch it and take notes. Again, if you fill out that form, I will contact you and see like, hey, what did you want to watch at this meeting? Or what are you interested in? Or if you've never done it before, I can assign you an agenda item to watch because those meetings are very, very long. So I'm here to like make it as easy as possible. I can help train you on how to take notes. I can train you on how to create a write-up, guide you in terms of what agenda items to watch. You don't have to do it with our website either. You can also email our email. You can reach out on socials. If there's anything that you would want us to feature or publish in our newsletter, you can contact us, email, through our website forms, through our socials, and I can help you make it happen. I can turn notes you write into write-ups, or you can create a write-up and I can edit it and publish it. How's that, Paul? Sorry, that was really long.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll come back around to it. Basically, what you're saying is that there's an opportunity for people to get involved.
Yes.
Whether you have experience doing this already and you're going to meetings already and you're like, hey, I'd love to be able to flag this for Social Justice Politicorps, or whether it's your first time and you're kind of trying to dabble, into this, and Andy can walk you through and help you with it. So that sounds awesome. So we'll definitely follow up at the end of the episode and remind everyone where they can find that information. And then, Sarah, you mentioned that you're responsible for community engagement and community outreach. And you mentioned Drip Espresso, which I know is a local coffee shop that's on 24th, right across from Reyes Flowers. And they're open. So tell us, first of all, when are you at Drip? We love Drip. So want to talk more about that, and just like where are some of the other places that you are and what are you doing while you're there?
Yeah. So Drip Espresso is such an amazing partner for us. They're a civically engaged coffee shop, and I found out about them right when they opened, and I was an intern still at that point. So I kind of just mentioned it, I think, to Andy. And once I got my position as the community outreach coordinator, I thought, how fun would it be to just sit out there and have conversation with people and have coffee, right? Like, this is an amazing coffee shop that we support, we love. I have a background as a barista, and I just know that coffee shops are a place where people come together, community comes together, especially. Mm-hmm. And so I sit out there every Wednesday from 10 to 12. I have a little setup. I provide all the information needed to get involved with SJPC, brochures, flyers, postcards, all the good stuff. And I just encourage people to literally talk to me. I will have people walk by me and I'll just greet them. I'll give them a little line sometimes. I'll be like, how can we make Sacramento more socially just? What do you believe? Like, how do you feel about us more socially just Sacramento? I try to just engage with anybody that I can get.
What's the most interesting answer you've gotten to that question?
I get a lot of hell if I know, I get a lot of who knows? And I think another interesting answer I get is what even is social justice? What even does that mean? Right.
That was going to be my next question. So, I there's a lot that we can say here, but love Drip Espresso, especially because they are also one of the partners that have really helped us elevate the Sacramento Sisters of Circle and BWAPA voter guide. So you're absolutely right. They are a, community-minded and social justice-minded coffee shop, again, located on 24th Street. Shout out to them. They're doing really wonderful work. And, it's really nice. Even when you just walk in, the aesthetic is nice. Yes. They have local business cards. They are Black women owned by some literal sisters. And so it's just really nice to be able, the vibe is right. So, tell us a little bit what is social justice? Because we can tell the story later of going out and canvassing and running into a person who felt like social justice was anti-white people, and it was the whole thing. And I had a very long conversation with him. But when we say social justice, when you're talking about Social Justice Politicorps, what does that mean to you?
How I like to kind of explain it, because I get asked that quite a bit when I'm out and about. I kind of like to see it like an umbrella, right? Like an umbrella of various different things that, advocating for those who face historical social inequities and marginalized communities, and just, seeing it as an umbrella that covers all different kinds of things, right? So when we talk about equitable housing, equitable healthcare, criminal justice reform, racial justice, all those things, it all falls under this umbrella of social justice. But thinking of those who have faced social historical inequities is how I kind of explain it. And yeah, that's kind of my answer when I'm asked. And I like to sometimes I'll let them know about the 8 issue areas that we focus on, which include some of the things that I just mentioned. But that's how I see social justice. And that's how I've learned social justice through Social Justice Politicorps. It's a whole big thing, and you can be an expert in one single thing. We try to really cover every topic.
Excellent. So, okay, so we kind of have a sense of, what Social Justice Politicorps is. Some of the main things you're doing, you're engaging the community. Sarah is out in front of Drip from 10 to 12 on Wednesdays. Andy is there to be able to help you if you're wanting to attend a meeting or already planning to attend a meeting, so that we can, have that information shared with us through the newsletter and other ways. So let's talk a little bit about one of the big things that you all do on a regular basis, which is the report card. Tell us about the report card. What is it, and why are you doing this report card, and who can be involved? Love to hear all the things.
All right. I'll go. Tell me to stop talking if I go for too long.
I'm not going to do that, Andy.
Oh, no. Okay. So
do you want me to ask you shorter questions?
Ask me a shorter one.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
So what is the report card?
The report card is, it provides a grade for elected officials within City Council and Board of Supervisors, A through F, on how well they have done at upholding social justice values within the previous year. It also grades the city and county A through F on our 8 issue areas that Sarah mentioned. So basically, it's a shortcut to understand how our local government is doing in terms of upholding social justice values.
And so what does an A grade mean?
Yeah, we have a really detailed rubric that I probably won't read right now because it's like very long, but an A means that there's a good faith effort being made to create policies that align with what our goals are for each issue area, if that makes sense. So there's a general grade that is just asking social justice A through F. And then there's the more specific grades for the issue areas have a breakdown what A through F means. And so if you look at the survey, you can access the grading rubric and it has all of this like laid out in like quite a bit of detail. I guess, yeah, I would say that an A basically means that you're aligned with social justice values and you're making an effort to make policy align with those values. And then just gets progressively worse.
Okay, I was gonna say, so what does a C mean if I were to give somebody a C?
Yeah, I think an example that comes to mind is what we gave Phil Cerna in 2021. He got a C. There's 2 grades that we assign. One grade is the average result of the community survey that we're pushing that I'm sure we'll talk about later. It's called the community grade. So every person, every issue area has a community grade. There's also an editorial grade, which was assigned by our SJPC council members, and the council is made up of experts from different organizations, social justice aligned organizations within Sacramento County. So Cerna, I think, got a C for editorial and for community. And so, you know, that's an example of, at the time, someone who has made some good decisions. I think that was aligned with the first decision to not expand the jail. That decision was incorporated into that grade. I think it was within the time period.
Okay.
But then he's also was also like, I think incorporated into that report card was some really harmful things that he has said about the unhoused community and policies in that area.
Okay.
So it's hard because not everybody is like following these people as closely as we are.
Sure.
So
yes.
So he could be receiving a grade for any different number of reasons. I would say that the editorial grade being a C is probably reflective of the fact that advocates were grateful for a couple of things, but then also like not okay with some of his other decisions.
Yes.
And that's all reflected in the results too. We have like an improvements needed section.
And that makes sense. And that's Sacramento County Supervisor Phil Cerna, who represents District 1, which includes most of the city of Sacramento. The other supervisor that also has part of the city of Sacramento is District 2 Supervisor Patrick Kennedy. So Andy was explaining that, you know, part of the grade is coming from sort of subjectively how people are viewing that supervisor's actions and how also internally you weight them. And so you mentioned, Andy, that there are 2 grades that each elected official in Sacramento City and County get. One is coming from the community. So that's people like me and all of our listeners who are going to go to Social Justice SAC and go to the website. We're going to see the 2 arrows that are pointing at the top of the page to say, go ahead and take the report card, fill it out, and we're going to fill that out, and we're going to subjectively say, based on what I was paying attention to and based on what I value, here's how I think these people are doing. And then you mentioned that there's a group of social justice aligned organizations that make up this board that are also going to do the same thing, but they likely are following a lot more than maybe you and I are. And so they're going to really consider all the things that are happening. So if you're listening and you're thinking to yourself, I barely know what Patrick Kennedy has been up to. Maybe he's my representative, maybe he's not, right? Or, you know, Rich Desmond or one of the other county supervisors, like Pat Hume, who was brand new. Maybe you don't know what he's taking. You haven't had time to watch a meeting since he joined the board in December. Then you can still go through and you can fill out as much of the report card as you want to, but then just know that there's also this other measure of people who are paying closer attention who will be able to offset that. So you don't have to feel intimidated that your opinion is valid, even if it's not a complete, census of everything that this person has said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I was going to add a couple of things on that. So in the actual survey, the only required question is how is Sacramento County as a whole done at upholding social justice values within the previous year? The rest of the survey is totally optional. You can grade no one, you can grade two people, you can grade issue areas. It's up to you. There's also a comment section. I love getting comments from people about what they're thinking about these grades, if they have suggestions, all of that. So it's intended to be manageable, but it is tricky because there's a lot of information in there. And I think, it's understandable if it would feel overwhelming. There's also in the survey the option, if you don't know who your city council person is, or you don't know who your supervisor is, you can look it up directly through the survey. There's also links to our website where we talk about the elected officials. So every elected official in city council or on the board has their own page on our website that tracks every blog post they've ever been part of that we've written. So if you're like, I don't know anything about Supervisor Kennedy, and if you want to learn, you can look up on our website. We have the same thing for our social justice issue areas. So every post that's ever been tagged as environmental justice, for example, you can see all of those on our website. So it's a lot of information, but hopefully accessible if you want to really dive in there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So just as a reminder, Social Justice SAC, you can fill it out. You only have to answer one question in order to be able to hit submit. So answer as much or as little as you feel comfortable answering. So now you mentioned, giving people grades, and I'm really curious about who is the intended respondent to this survey. Sarah, you're out, in the community. Is it anybody should respond to this? Is it people who live in Sacramento County? Is it people who work in Sacramento County? Who should be responding?
Yes. So I think it's a tough question. Sorry. I'm going to start over because I don't know what just happened there. Yes. So when looking at responses, this is for anybody to take. I mean, we're not going to sit here and tell you that you can't take the survey, especially if you live here in Sacramento. But what we will say is that our target, what we're really trying to focus on, is impacted communities, marginalized communities, communities who have faced social, historical inequities, communities who we really want to elevate their voices. Our goal here is to make sure that those who are not always represented, those who are often ignored, really have a voice in what's happening. We really want to make sure that we're able to educate people about, who even is your representative, and then go even farther than that and have them, help people understand that they do have a say in what's going on and what the decisions that are being made every single day. So yes, anyone who lives in Sacramento, anyone who's pertains to city or county in Sacramento can take the survey. We're not going to, not let anybody do it, but we're not going to go advertise it to business owners. We're not going to advertise it, to people who have a lot of say in Sacramento. I mean, those are the people whose voices are being heard every single day. We try to target communities who are often ignored. So a part of our entire campaign is making sure that we target those communities, and we've partnered with the Black Child Legacy Campaign, and we use the 7 locations that they've outlined as some of the most vulnerable communities in Sacramento, and we follow that model. So yes, if you live in Sacramento City, you're more than welcome to take it, but we really try to make sure that we're elevating voices who are often unheard or most often ignored.
Thank you for that. And I think that's really important to be able to allow, the people who often don't have a say to be able to weigh in on how we're rating the work that these elected officials are doing. So, Sarah, you and I have had some opportunities to be able to go out and do some canvassing, and so I wanted to just take a little bit of time to talk about this, because for the last couple of weeks on this show, we have been talking a lot about homelessness, and about some of the more recent moves related to addressing homelessness or not addressing homelessness, as is more often the case in the city and county of Sacramento. We'll talk a little bit more about something that happened at the board just this past Tuesday in a minute, but I wanted to, as we've been having these conversations, can you say just a little bit more about the goal of the canvassing that we were doing? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about, what we're hearing from communities.
Sure. So Flo has honored us with her canvassing expertise and her time to come out once a month. And so to backtrack a little bit, we have a community meeting that we hold every month. It's typically the third Sunday, but I won't say that it's permanently that. It fluctuates once in a while, but it's typically the third Sunday of the month. Because of the report card, we're trying to really hit the 7 locations identified by the Black Child Legacy campaign to really make sure that we're infiltrating those communities and really talking to them. And so once a month before those community meetings happen, Flo graciously agreed to go out to the community and canvass and invite them to come to our meeting to talk to us and to take the report card survey. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. I went with her. I don't remember what month it was. I went with you.
That was February.
Just like I went in February, and we tackled Arden Arcade. We went through a street with a whole bunch of apartment complexes, and we just, we were trying to let them know that this amazing community meeting where we discuss really important things happening in Sacramento is happening right down the street. We want to hear from you. We want to make space for you to air out what's going on in your everyday lives. And then to also consider taking the report card as a way to really document how you feel about your representatives, about the needs that the community needs, right? And so we went around, and it was so interesting. It was so nice to have conversations with people. But the goal of the canvassing was to get people to come to this meeting, to then potentially present them the report card, and then to have them take the survey, since, like I said, they are the communities that we're most targeting right now.
Yes, and as is the case for community work, there's always fun things that happen along the way. So in addition to getting lovingly hit on by several of our community members in the most respectful of ways possible. We also had several conversations with people about the conditions in their apartment complexes. So this past month, Sarah wasn't able to join, so I went out and did 2 additional apartment complexes. And what I heard from people who were living in both was that one, the tenants had actually organized and they had sued their landlord, and I think they were now under new management. And so they were finally starting to, literally there was an apartment that had a boarded up window. And one of the residents told me that place had been, the window had been boarded up. It was actually somebody staying still in that apartment, and that this window had been boarded up for over a year. And so just think about, how much heating and cooling is being wasted because it's not sealed, right? And just all the other ways that this is just deeply problematic to have somebody living in a place where their window is boarded up and where nobody has really taken time to repair that window. The pool was there that was basically like not maintained at all. The laundry facility hadn't been maintained. And so it was just really, they were talking about all of the conditions. So here are people who were housed, who were talking about the poor conditions that they were subjected to and having very little recourse until they were able to get together and push back and sue the landlord. And I guess the landlord finally said, okay, I'm sick of this, and sold it to someone else who now is actually attending to those needs. But one of the things that really bothered me, at least, was they talked about how they had a pool, and the pool had been so, like, it was disgusting. They said that there were rats swimming through it. And it was just like, it was, the color that a pool should not be. And so when the new management took over, they just like filled it in with rocks. And I was when I looked at it, I thought, why are these rocks here? I didn't think about it as being a pool. And then I thought to myself, gosh, like, what if you had talked to the community members about what they wanted to have there? What if it was a community garden or a play area or a convening space where you could have maybe some built-in grills and, a canopy or something? Like, there's so much more you could have done with this space than just fill it in with rocks, which, by the way, are expensive. So it's not as if they did the cheapest thing possible. And I was just like, it's an example of not doing the thing that could go a long way for the people living there, and instead just trying to do the bare minimum, which is certainly better than the previous landlord, but was just really challenging. And then in the other apartment complex, I actually had a long conversation with a woman who was 70. Her husband, I think, was 70-ish too, like maybe 71 or 72. And they were talking about how they don't have any family in this area. And that, if the rents continue to go up, that they don't have anywhere to go. And that, they can't afford some of the other senior living places, and this is kind of their last resort. And it was really heartbreaking to, have this conversation with this couple saying, I don't know what I'm going to do if this doesn't work out. So, it was beautiful to be in community. I was actually offered a plate from somebody when I walked in. They were starting the grill. And by the time I was finished up, they had finished grilling, and they had prepared a plate for me and invited me and introduced me to other folks. And it was just a really nice experience to be with them. But the issues that were being lifted up are the next set of steps that happen after, like, even when people are housed. That's not the end of the story. We always emphasize that we want safe and affordable housing. And both of those, were challenged in the stories that we were hearing from some of the folks in the apartment complexes.
Yeah. I will say that it definitely stayed with me the month that I was able to go out with you. I had spoken to this older gentleman, 50s, 60s, and he was so worried. I mean, he not only disabled, but also not working. And he was just, and a veteran also. And he was so worried about, what do I do when I have to leave here? Like, what do I do when I can't afford to be here? And it's so heartbreaking, because the conditions are not, are definitely not worth the amount that they're paying every month, right? I mean, $1,000+ in rent every month, and they have to fight for things to be changed, fight for change, and they have to sue to get, the basic amenities, and it was heartbreaking. You can feel like the anxiety, you can feel the fear. I mean, and I've not been in the position where I am insecure about my housing, but imagine, not being able to, not knowing next month where you'll be. And, I don't even believe he had a car. I think he was telling me that he rides his bike everywhere. And so, like, how is he supposed to, where he doesn't have a car, where else does he go after this, right? Like, he's just straight up on the street. And so it was beautiful, like you said, but also really heartbreaking, because these people, they matter. I mean, everybody matters. And, it should be a basic human right to have affordable housing that's secure and safe for your children. We saw so many children playing outside in apartment complexes. We stopped and talked to some. They were so sweet.
We broke up a fight between a couple of kids and had a whole conversation about how we love each other and we use our words to communicate and not our fists to communicate. That was how I know I have stepped into auntie mode, because when I step in to parent other people's children, I was like, oh, I'm definitely 40 now.
and they let you. And then they started
telling me about Valentine's Day at their school and what had happened and who did what to whom and who was the oldest of their siblings. And it was a real community moment. There were about
absolutely
like 9 or 10 kids out there, and I was trying to figure out, like, so you're siblings with this one and you're related to this one, and it was wonderful.
And you can see the community that they've built, like, right there in their complexes, right? Like, they all know each other. People are very much outside. I mean, anyways, I live in Citrus Heights and nobody's outside. We're very rarely out here, but like there's little communities in there. And so it was really just, if anything, it was really inspiring, right?
Absolutely. Once you talk to one person, they're like, that person's not home. Tell her I sent you. Go up here. That apartment. It was just very much reminiscent of how I grew up.
Yes.
It's just like everybody's business, and you're all kind of there together, doing this thing called life. So.
Yes.
Well, speaking of housing, I know Andy and Sarah have been following this issue on Monday morning. The SACB, Teresa Clift, shout out to Teresa Clift, published a story about how Sacramento self-help housing was losing its American Rescue Plan Act funds, and so therefore would have to was in a position where they just financially cannot afford to continue their services. And so as a result, they were going to be sending eviction letters to 560 people in Sacramento and another 100 that are living in Stockton. And so that then we were notified that was item 47 on the county supervisor's agenda, because they had planned to withdraw this money. And so, Andy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened and how this kind of played out?
Yeah, I can tell you very bare bones, I guess.
Sure.
I wasn't able to watch the meeting myself, but I know that there was like a really awesome turnout in terms of like people fucking telling them that they need to like house these people and don't just like let them all immediately lose their housing.
Yes.
The board approved transferring $1 million from the general fund in order to help. I think it's back pay for the landlords that like own the houses that people stay in. But that's it. So they agreed to pay that $1 million from the general fund.
Was it $1 million or was it 1.7? Because I know the staff report proposed.
You could
1.7.
be right.
Okay.
I believe you.
I ended up having to leave early from the meeting as well, so I wasn't sure if anything changed in what was in the initial item. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, we'll say between $1 and $2 million.
There we go. Just to be safe.
But they approved that. But that's a one-time chunk of money. As far as I understand, there's been no promises in terms of people taking over the contracts. The county has not said it will take over the contracts, and they haven't made any like concrete announcements about other organizations taking over the contracts. So as far as I understand everything, it's very much still fucked if there's no more money and if no one takes over those contracts.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess that's the basic thing that happened.
And I mean, to Sarah's point, right, about like who gets protected. So here we have an item that is added to the county supervisor's agenda that largely, the action item largely prioritizes the needs of the landlords, which, I don't know if these are, small, folks who don't have a whole lot of extra money, whatever. I'm not sure that these are all like corporate overlord kind of landlords. But still, there are people who, are going to lose their housing. I know in the B article, they talked about, one person who had chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder or COPD and heart disease, who was really worried about losing his housing because he had already gotten an eviction notice. And he was just like, I don't know where I'm going to go. And I can't make it outside, right? We've already had people this year die from exposure, die from hypothermia. One died right in front of a hospital, right? Because it was raining and they were wet, and you're more likely to have high cold stress during those times. So, it felt to me like the priority should have been, how do we keep people in their housing? And then how do we get back pay? Because there was a way to be able to do both. And it felt like we prioritized the wrong thing. I also think it's worth noting that, Sacramento self-help housing has had challenges in management for years. I would call it an open secret if it was actually a secret, but it's just been like, not even whispered, it's just been spoken loudly. And so the idea that the county suddenly decided that, enough is enough, and now we're gonna do something when new leadership had just come in and they were kind of trying to clean things up, feels a little disingenuous because this has been a problem for a long time, and there was actually the beginnings of looking like maybe an upswing. And it would have at least made sense to, before you decided to withdraw the money, to have a plan in place. And that's the kind of irresponsible governance that makes people not trust, but also is incredibly harmful to people. So the idea that we would let 660 people lose their housing because of an administrative error, you know what it reminds me of? And this is like definitely, you know, privilege problems, but I was actually flying back from being in Pittsburgh for a funeral for Kula's wedding. And I got to the airport about 2 hours before my flight, and they said, oh, your flight on Delta was canceled. And so it was a code share, like maybe I flew out on United and was flying back on Delta. That Delta flight was canceled. And there was a flight to Sacramento from Pittsburgh that was leaving in like an hour and 30 minutes. But Delta and United fought for 2.5 hours over how they were going to pay each other for my flight. And so I literally stood at a gate watching my flight board and take off because they couldn't figure out how to transfer the money. And all I kept thinking was, this is above me. Let me get on the plane and you all duke it out over the, like, I paid you money. You're not asking me for more money. Why am I the one who's about to miss my flight and potentially miss my friend's wedding because you all can't get your lives together? So I ended up having to be rerouted to San Francisco, frantically call a friend to drive 2 hours there to pick me up and 2 hours back. And I missed Kula's wedding. I literally, the only thing I got to see was like them kiss, but I missed the entire ceremony, right? Because And again, it's not the same as obviously losing your housing, and I'm not meaning to minimize that, but I think the structural issue of making individuals pay for something that has nothing to do with them. These people did nothing to lose their housing. They are just living their lives. They're thankful to be there. They are assuming that Sacramento self-help housing and the county are going to handle, you know, their rent payments. And then suddenly, because people above them that they have no control over and had nothing to do with can't get their stuff together, and now they're being impacted. And so it reminds me that like at every level, systems just don't prioritize the people. They prioritize, you know, kind of the fighting between each other. And it was just terrible and irresponsible. Did either of you get to watch any part of the meeting?
I didn't. I was feeling very, very anxious about it and avoided the whole thing, which is probably not great, but that's what happened.
I understand. The other piece I was going to say that was really troublesome to me was that, so also what was happening in the off agenda items was that the families of 3 people who had been killed by the Sacramento sheriffs, one, it was the 6-month anniversary of his death, Mr. Naranjo, and the families were there to, you know, express their pain and outrage. And towards the end, I couldn't quite see the person because they were off camera, but you could hear this voice saying, what is the county going to do about, you know, the sheriffs killing Black people? And maybe they even said Black and brown people. I couldn't quite hear because again, they were far away from the mic. And Rich Desmond, who's the chair of the board, just like was just like, you're interrupting the meeting, you're interrupting the meeting, you're interrupting the meeting. And I would love for all of our city and county officials to go through some trauma-informed training, because these people have lost their life. And like, you could have avoided disrupting this meeting in this way if you had addressed them like a human being and not like a robot, and just simply said like, we need to address this. Let's find a time for us to talk about it, whatever, you know, let's talk about this. Let's figure out a path forward. But because it seems like they don't care, they didn't do that. And so the meeting ended up having like a 2-hour delay, all because they didn't know how to engage a grieving human like a human. And that was part of the reason why I missed the final discussion and vote, because this was supposed to happen at like 11 a.m. and instead ended up being taken up at like 2:30. And it's one of those things where it's just like, you add insult to injury when you don't know how to talk to people. When
you value decorum, right? Who the hell cares? I was at an event and I was following through Signal, because everybody, you know, always talks through there. And there was people saying like, you know, Desmond values the voices of certain people and only certain people, though, because like, why, this is part of this meeting was dedicated to those three people and, Jaime and his 6-month anniversary. I mean, 6-month, the 6-month anniversary of his death. And so, they should have the say to say whatever they need to say. And there are some people who he was valuing, and then there are some people who he was like absolutely discarding and discrediting fully, and on the basis of decorum. And like, who the hell cares? Who the hell cares when people are hurting, and when people, you're our representative. I just can't get over that. You're our representatives. You work for us. Like, we should be critical of you in every single step. And you're mad that we are. And you urge people to show up, and we do, and we're loud, and we say what we need, and we're ignored, and it just canvassing with you, Flo, and seeing how people are living and they're being constantly ignored, and then seeing the way that they're being ignored even if they go up and say what they need to say. It's too much. It's honest for me anyways. It was too much. And I'm probably pretty happy that I didn't go to that or listen into that meeting, because I probably would have been filled with rage. But
it's traumatizing. Yeah. Andy?
Just the board and the city council, they're both, especially the board, it's just like white supremacist bullshit. All saying that we need decorum, that's white supremacy. That's a characteristic of white supremacy. And they do it on purpose, because there's like, it's just, I mean, obviously it's a way to take away voices that aren't like fucking wealthy white business property owning voices, law enforcement voices. It's just it's a means of oppression, and they do it over and over and over and over. You can watch any number of meetings and see them say the same shit about civility and decorum, and they do it at city council. Steinberg does it at city council. Mm-hmm. Fucking Harris did it at city council a ton. Like, it's, I don't really.
Ashby did it at city council when she would step in. I mean, like, it was just, yeah, you're right.
You guys have like basically already said all the things, but it's just like, it's just white supremacy. It's a way to oppress people. And Desmond did that with this last jail vote.
Yes, I was just gonna say
decorum and using it as a way to like silence people. Because if you're traumatized by these fucking people, then you might not be able to express yourself within the realm of decorum, which is fucking fair. I don't express myself with decorum when I'm upset or when I'm not upset, probably. But like, it's just oppression.
I only see decorum when you're trying to get through an agenda, right? Like, I'm not worried about, I guess like I get decorum when you're like, okay, you have to go through this list of things, but like when you're talking about things like that, and how insensitive, and he just sits up there and he's fine. Like, he goes home and he's unscathed, right? Like, he's chilling at home, and
the rest all of us people, are like,
right?
Yeah.
Like,
we're all riled up because like our humanity has not been so deeply suppressed that we still feel the things, and we're still empathetic humans. And I think that's probably the hardest part. You all were talking about decorum and like trying to get through an agenda, and all I kept thinking was, sometimes what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And what I mean by that very old-timey saying is that, like, if he had just taken a moment to say to those families, I have heard the depths of your pain today, and there's nothing I can say or do that is going to take away what you've experienced or resurrect your loved ones. But as an elected official in this county, my job is to hear you, and my job is to make sure that we learn lessons so that this does not happen to anyone else. And that's my commitment to you. And I would love to be able to have a conversation with you, to schedule a time where this can be given the time and energy it deserves for us to be able to answer questions, for us to be able to think through some strategies and come up with something together. And I'm really appreciative that you all have come here today. I know how difficult that was. And so let's move forward and figure out a way to be able to have that conversation. And I can't guarantee it, but I would bet good money that if Rich Desmond had handled it like that, his precious little meeting would have started up in about 5 more minutes. And instead, you wasted 3 hours saying, because you couldn't just remind yourself that you were a human being and that these are human beings expressing their pain. And, you know, one of the things that really stands out to me is my organization has been going through some training around, you know, trauma and around racial equity. And one of the things we talked about is that when harm has been caused, you don't start with an apology or a clarification of what you meant. That centers you as the perpetrator. You start with an acknowledgement of the harm that has happened. You then move to attunement, and you don't tone police people about how they expressed their pain. They were the ones who were hurt. You don't tell them I could hear you if you weren't cursing at me. You don't tell me if you lower your voice, you attune to what has taken place, and then you pledge action. Moving forward, I want to sit down and meet with you. I want to whatever. And then you can offer an apology because now you know what the hell you're apologizing for. And then if it's appropriate, your next step is to ask for forgiveness, knowing full well that it may not happen immediately. It's not guaranteed. And so you can say, I hope that we can get to a place where you can forgive, but knowing that that's not an immediate process. That's how you handle a harm that you have committed as an institutional actor. When you don't do that, you just create more harm. And I don't even know what to do with them, but it's just so incredibly frustrating.
Well, the thing is, like, you're right, but they would never do that. That would never happen because, like, at a fundamental level, Desmond does not think that the people he's talking to are worth his time or effort or energy. He doesn't value their lives like he values other people's lives. So it's like, you know, of course, he's never going to address something in a trauma-informed way because he's not even recognizing the trauma in the first place. Because if you don't value people's lives, then you're not going to listen to them.
Right.
And that's like, I would like to give a quick shout out to Sue Frost for being the only no vote on the Trans Visibility Week resolution.
She was also the only no vote on racism as a public health crisis.
So if we can
count on Sue Frost for nothing, we can count on her for consistently bad takes.
Literally, and her hair. I'm sorry. You can edit that out, but her hair too. And I think going back to what Andy was just saying, like, I think any type of Desmond, anyone else admitting to any apologies, anything, it would be admitting to everything that the community has been saying that they've been doing wrong, right? Like, it'd be admitting to the fact that law enforcement here in Sacramento is lethal for certain groups of people. And, his whole bullshit act would fall apart if he just, at any point apologized or acknowledged anybody. So of course that doesn't work for his brand. So, he can't do all of that. But
yeah. Well, on that note, I want to just I think it's time for us to close out the show. But I want to make sure that we remind you that Andy and Sarah are with Social Justice Politicorps. And so you can find their organization's website at Social Justice SAC. You can also find them on social media. And the big thing is you can find Sarah on Wednesdays from 10 to 12 at Drip. If you want to come out and talk about what Sacramento can do to be, a more socially just community. And then also you can take the report card. We really want as many people to take the report card. Remind me again, it's open until July.
End of July, July 31st.
July 31st. Okay, so you have time. So open it up in a browser, be thoughtful about it, go back through some of the old social justice reports and be able to see what people have been up to. If you're feeling like you want to give a grade and it feels good, but you're like, is that the full story? There's lots of resources on the site and on the actual report card itself. So take that report card by July 31st. And with that, we are going to close up the show. We want you all to stay engaged, let your voices be heard, and keep fighting the good fight. Andy and Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight. It was really a pleasure to talk all things serious and funny with you, and we really just appreciate the work you're doing in Sacramento.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Right back at you.
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.